Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Angelina and today I'm going to be doing part 1 to a little video series that I'm going to be starting in which I brutally read down my Netgalley TBR. So if you've seen my goals video, I recently did a mid-year goals update check-in type video, which I'll link in the cards and in the description below. But one of my goals for this year is to read all of my Netgalley arcs and to just completely stop using Netgalley. And I still have 40 Netgalley arcs to read, so I figured that I would do a little challenge in order to read them all down. And that is what part 1 of this video is 20 of these arcs I have picked, and I'm going to be reading the first chapter of them and telling you if I'm going to continue reading them or if I'm just going to DNF them. Okay, so the 20 books for this round is The Charmed List, Silver Under Nightfall, Where Darkness Blooms, Pinata, The Do-Over, Highland Beast, 4 Weddings and a Duke, An Island Princess Starts a Scandal, Tilly and Technicolor, Fly With Me, The Jinn-Bot of Shantiport, Nordic Visions, Brainwyrms, Love at 350, Friends Don't Fall in Love, Organ Meats, Godly Heathens, A Fragile Enchantment, Mean Girl Feminism, and Late Bloomer. So I have read the first chapter of all 20 of these books already, and I'm going to tell you which ones I will be continuing and which ones I have DNF'd. I'm gonna talk about these books a little bit, sort of what worked for me, what didn't work for me, and in part 2 of this video I will be talking about all the books that I chose to read, and if after continuing past the first chapter, if I read the entire book, my thoughts on it, or if I did end up DNFing it. And yeah, let's just get into it. So first is The Charmed List. This is a book that I did end up DNFing. It is a YA sort of magical realism type book, and I don't read a lot of YA anymore, so finding YA that works with me now that I don't tend to pick up YA is kind of a challenge, I suppose. This is one that I had interest in back when I was reading YA, but that is not the case anymore, and after reading the first chapter I could tell that it is not a book that I would be into now or that I would really enjoy reading, so I just went ahead and DNF'd it. Next is Silver Under Nightfall, and this one I was kind of on the fence about, but I decided that I would keep reading this one. And this is sort of a vampire book. I believe it is adult, but it was very action-packed right off the bat, and I think that's kind of why I decided I want to continue, just because it was pretty cool seeing them fight. And our main character is a vampire hunter. I believe he's referred to as the Reaper, and he is half vampire, half human. And I don't know, something about it kind of intrigued me, so I decided that that was one I would go ahead and continue with. I'm also going to continue reading Where Darkness Blooms, and this one was another one that I didn't really know if I wanted to continue or not. It is a YA book, and I actually ended up reading the first 3 chapters of this one, because after reading the first chapter, I was like, I'm not too sure about this one, but I was intrigued enough that I read the second chapter and then the third chapter. And I figured that if I was going to read 3 chapters, I might as well just continue reading the entire book. I still don't know if this story is one that I will end up enjoying, but the intrigue is there, and it's more of a YA thriller type story, but yeah. I must want to continue reading it since I already read 3 chapters, so that is one I will be reading more of. I did decide to DNF Pinata. This is one I kind of had very high expectations for. It's an adult horror book all about possession, and something about the writing just didn't work for me. And rereading the synopsis after reading that first chapter, I could kind of tell that it wouldn't be a story it wasn't the story I thought it was going to be originally, so I just decided to go ahead and DNF that one. I am going to continue reading The Do-Over. This is an author who I've read before. I've enjoyed some of this author's books, and I've also DNF'd some of this author's books. So yeah, this author, I kind of have some mixed experiences with, but the first chapter of this one intrigued me enough. It's all about this woman who has a very like big writing career, and for her next book she wants to sort of tell people how to get like a really good job and everything, and she gets this like great job opportunity because she wanted that experience in order to write about it. And in like going for like this job, she realized she never actually completed her college degree. She was missing one credit, so she's going to be going back to school in order to get that one credit. And there was just something about it that intrigued me enough that I did want to continue. Alright, and then Highland Beast, 4 Weddings and a Duke, and an Island Princess Starts a Scandal. These are all historical romances, and I do tend to really enjoy historical romances, but something about writing, like, and how it's framed is something that I focus a lot on. So for these 3, I just wasn't feeling it. And for An Island Princess Starts a Scandal, I've actually read the first in this series, and I gave it 3 stars. It wasn't my favorite, but it wasn't terrible, and I could kind of just tell that this one would also be in that 3-star range, so I didn't really feel like there was any reason for me to continue, just because I would rather read more like 4 and 5-star books than just middle-of-the-road books. So yeah, I will be DNFing all 3 of those. Next is Tilly and Technicolor by Maisie Eddings. Maisie Eddings is one of my all-time favorite authors. I've given every single book by her 5 stars, and this is her YA debut. And like I've mentioned earlier in this video, I don't read YA too much anymore. However, this one has like Maisie Eddings' like signature humor. It has characters who have neurodivergency, and something about it is just working for me so well. I'm absolutely loving this book. It's the one that I've read the most of so far, just because after reading the first chapter I couldn't stop reading the book, and I am 70% into it already. But this is following our main character, Tilly, and she is going on this trip around Europe to work as an intern to her sister, who is trying to start up a small business. And Tilly has ADHD, and her family doesn't really understand her and how her brain works. And as Tilly's like on this trip getting all of this life experience that her parents want, she is forced to work with another intern on the trip, Oliver, who does have autism, and the 2 of them end up connecting over their neurodivergency, and it's just really cute, really wholesome, and I'm absolutely loving it. So yeah, I did continue with that one, obviously. I made it quite far, so like into it, but yeah. Obviously when I finish it, it will be in the next video where I will fully talk about it, but it is one that I obviously continue with. Next is Fly With Me, and this is an adult sapphic romance, and I will be continuing it. I just really connected with the writing for this one right off the bat. Not much happened in this first chapter. It follows our main character who has like a fear of flying, and she's on a plane at the beginning of it, and it's very sort of chaotic in that she's panicking being on this plane, and all of a sudden they're calling out for a doctor, and there's no doctor on the plane, but she is a nurse, so she is called to help. And that's kind of where the first chapter ends, but I was very intrigued by it, so I will be continuing with it. Next is the Jinn-Bot of Shantiport, and this is a like sci-fi book that is very interesting. I was a bit confused for the first chapter, but I was still intrigued enough that I want to continue. I think like the format of my arc is a bit like weird, so I would want to like get the book from my library, get the audiobook, something else, because I think that was like part of the problem, but I was intrigued enough to want to continue. Next we have Nordic Visions, and this is actually a collection of short stories by a variety of like different authors from the Nordic regions, and I read the first story and I gave it 3 stars. However, the like introduction and like the whole like purpose of this book, I guess, really intrigues me, so I do want to give like all the other stories a try as well. And the first story, just being a 3-star, it wasn't too bad. It definitely had my attention, so I'm not mad about reading it, and I do want to continue with the other stories. And I'll also be continuing with Brainwyrms. This is another story that after I read the first chapter, I was like so confused on if I want to continue with it or not. It was a very interesting start to the book. And I did end up reading another chapter, and I was like, I'm intrigued enough to want to continue. I don't really know what this book is completely about. I know that our main character is trans, and she is in sort of this BDSM club at the start of the book, and she ends up meeting someone else there, and there's like this past event that happened that has something to do with the present. I'm not really too sure on the whole like premise of this book, but it was intriguing enough for me to want to continue. I do believe it is a horror book, so I'm intrigued. And for Love at 350, I will not be continuing with this one. This is one that I thought was going to be a sapphic romance. And after reading the first chapter, I wasn't really connecting with the writing. I didn't really want to continue. However, I wanted to read reviews of it. And reading the reviews, it seems like this book has very little to do with the romance. And that's kind of the whole like main reason why I wanted to read this book, was because I thought it was a romance. I thought it was going to be a sapphic romance, but if that is not like the major focus of this book, then that also loses like a lot of the intrigue I had. And again, I didn't connect with the writing at the beginning, so I don't really have any reason to want to continue reading it. Next is Friends Don't Fall in Love, and I also won't be continuing with this one just because of the writing. The character dynamics, I could already tell how they were going to be. I feel like friends to lovers is a trope that I really like if it's done right, I suppose. I feel like there's certain ways it's written where it can just come off as a bit weird, a bit creepy. I don't really enjoy friends to lovers where like one of them has been like pining for the other one for like their entire friendship. It's just a bit weird to me. And yeah, I didn't connect with the writing. It's just not a story that I really want to continue reading. Next is Godly Heathens, and I also won't be continuing with this one. I, for some reason, thought this was going to be like a fantasy or like a fantasy romance type book, and it's actually more of a contemporary fantasy or like magical realism type story, and those are a hard sell for me. And the writing I wasn't connecting with. I do know that this is a queer story, but I feel like other people will like it a lot better than me, and there's no reason for me to continue reading it knowing that it's not going to be a new favorite, and I don't want to bring the rating down for it, so I just went ahead and DNF'd it. A Fragile Enchantment is another one that I'm going to be DNFing, and I will be honest, I don't even remember what this first chapter was about. And I think that says all there is to say about it. It was unmemorable. I'm also going to DNF Mean Girl Feminism. I was like not connecting with the writing for it, which is very sad because I have my whole like feminist reads project that I'm doing, and I feel like this one could have been really great. However, the writing I wasn't enjoying, and for this whole first chapter, I didn't feel like I was getting anything new out of it. I felt like all of the ideas were very jumbled together, and like that first chapter didn't really know what it wanted to be, so I just went ahead and DNF'd it. And Late Bloomer by Maisie Eddings. Again, this is an author I absolutely love. I read the first chapter, I loved it. This is their first sapphic romance, and I am so excited to continue reading it. And yeah, it just seems like it's going to be a lot of fun. But those are the 20 books that I read the first chapter of. I ended up DNFing 11 of the books. So that's 11 books off of my Netgalley TBR that I do not have to worry about reading anymore. And it just feels really good to get a lot of these books off my TBR, knowing that I have no interest in them anymore. There's no reason to force myself to read a book that I have no interest in reading anymore. And yeah, now I know that there are 9 books that I do have an interest in and that I'm actually excited to get to. It just makes like reading my Netgalley TBR seem so less daunting, seems so much more fun. So I'm really glad that I ended up doing this challenge. And yeah, in a future video, when I have read these 9 books that I want to continue, I will come back, I will talk about them, my thoughts on them, how it's going, and I'll probably like give you what my new Netgalley score is, which is very exciting. But yeah, I will be doing another part to this where I read the first chapter of the last 20 books that I have on my Netgalley TBR. And yeah, it just feels so nice to actually get through all of these arcs and to actually make progress on this goal that I have for this year. And yeah, I'm glad that I ended up coming up with this idea because I feel like it just worked out so well for me. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, comment whatever you feel like commenting, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!